It's Thursday, so we're answering all of your Michigan football questions on the Michigan Mailbag on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Zuri is here with me right now, ready to answer your Michigan football questions on our weekly Michigan Mailbag. So let's dive right into it, starting with our leaders and best. James Critt at James Critt 6. One offensive commit and one defensive commit you are most excited about. I mean, the offensive commit... you know what? I want to go. I think it'd be easy to go Jaden Davis right now. I think it's Jordan Marshall. I think it's got to be Jordan Marshall. I am really excited about what he can do. He's that kind of. I feel like he could be. He's not the same type of player, but he can be Blake Corum-esque, right? Plus, just anytime you get an Ohio guy that Ohio State wanted, I'm always way excited to see that guy. Defensively, they don't really have anyone that I'm like, and let's pull up the commits list here real quick. They don't have anyone that I'm like head over heels about necessarily. I don't think. I mean, Mason Curtis is kind of exciting in the sense of having a 4-star linebacker. Michigan hasn't really gotten a lot of those types of guys. Obviously, when you look at the list, the majority of the top guys are offensive, and they haven't gotten that like game-changing defensive guy per se. The only other real options, if you're looking at the top of it, is Jacob Oden. I guess in a way, I'm excited to see him because I've seen him at camps over the years. But I think Mason Curtis having a 4-star linebacker, I'm definitely excited to see him, but obviously Jared Smith, and if he does commit like expected, Jacob Smith would be up there just because like they are 4 stars out of Cheshire, Connecticut, but they were guys that both had Alabama offers, and seeing them playing next to each other because Jared is an interior lineman. Jacob, just to look at him, he just looks like a game-changing edge, right? So I think that those would probably be, I know that's 3 guys, but there isn't like one guy in defensively yet in this class. This is a very offensive class thus far. Josh Barr at Jadicki, a lot being made recently of Harbaugh's comments on NIL and some of the new initiatives and direction. Even rumors of NIL helping recent basketball transfers too. Is Michigan finally catching up on NIL, and is the approach paying off while other schools' deals fall through? I think it's too early to tell. I certainly think that this direction is very good. Of course, you're referencing Empower and what he had to say about staying ahead of the curve, and just the fact that it's kind of like this holistic approach of we're going to help you figure out your branding, we're going to connect you with entrepreneurs, we're going to do all of these different things. I certainly think that it can be a little bit of a, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he'll try to take your yacht. I kind of butchered that Arrested Development quote, but you know what I mean? I think it's teaching men to fish while ensuring that they have all the tools they need to get fish. And I think that's important. Michael Wolf, my brother in metal at MWolf21. Do you expect Michigan to use more play action this season? I'll answer that before moving on. I think they should have used it a lot more last year. I don't know why they didn't. It's like that's such a bona fide, especially when you've got like these game-changing running backs and J.J. McCarthy who can run the ball. I understand it's like, well, you don't necessarily need it, but I mean, just use it. Use it all the time when you're passing because their teams are going to bite. Like we saw teams like Ohio State really sell out to stop the run. Right. And then, I mean, even in the first game, you saw Western Michigan sell out to stop the run, and they learned very quickly we can't do that. So get them to bite, get them to pull forward. I would hope that they do. I think this just makes sense. Do you think they should use JJ more to run the ball? Well, yes. Again, you have a guy who can run the ball. I guess there's the oh no's if he gets injured or something like that. But I mean, if you have a guy that is capable of running the ball, do it. At least here and there. I mean, he's a gritty runner. Seemed like last year he had a lot of opportunities to run, but would make the handoff. Yes, I agree. I think that if Michigan harnessed everything that it has at its disposal, the offense could be literally unstoppable. But the question is, will they? Jimmy Whitner at Jimmy Whitner 1. How many do you expect to be in this year's class? That's the thing. I think it's really difficult to say because they can harness NIL to pay for guys' scholarships. So there's not necessarily a hard cap per se. Plus you backdate with early enrollees and all of that kind of stuff. And then you just have to sit there and play the scholarship game. And then with guys getting money, I always just say looking for 25 and then, it could be as much as 30. Clearly they're looking for a big class here. Number 2, how surprised would you be if we got both corners from Ohio? I'd be pretty surprised. And now there's the scuttlebutt that Bryce West says it's 50-50 between Michigan and Ohio State. He is not visiting USC anymore. He's making his decision sometime in early July. Seems like Michigan made a really big push, but he does go to Ohio State this next week. I think I would say it's 50-50 that Michigan gets one of them. Or maybe like 49-51 that Michigan gets one of them. I still think Ohio State probably has the better shot of landing both. But we'll see. They got Aaron Scott coming to campus this weekend. Bryce West, if he obviously had a lot of bonding time with some of the guys, Aaron Scott gets to visit on a weekend in which there's most of the commits for their official visits. So that could play a factor, right? You bond with the guys. We talked about that earlier in the week. And so I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think they will, though. Not a lot of Glenville kids with Ohio State offers end up in Ann Arbor. Pierre Woods being the only one, right? I don't know if Frank Clark had a Ohio State offer. KRT at Farmer 84, which lesser known player, if any, will garner national attention this year? I mean, for Michigan fans, I don't think any of them is going to be like this. I don't think anyone's like unknown, but I could see like Junior Colson isn't necessarily like a household name per se. Chris Jenkins isn't necessarily like a household name. But I mean, those are guys that are getting some national attention thus far. Roman Wilson would be your obvious one, but again, that's a guy that's a household name for Michigan thus far. Otherwise, AJ Barner, I think, is a really good, obvious choice. I think he's going to get utilized a lot. I could see him being talked about as one of the top tight ends in the country. I don't think that the thing is you've got so much returning talent. We know who everybody is. Rod Moore, I think, could be like a veritable star in the sport, I think. But again, we know who everybody is. There's not a lot of new names and faces outside of the transfers. Who is the most important non-starter on the team right now? That's from Jonathan Joseph at JJoseph2156. Edwards and Corm are both starters. And rare phone call. That's probably a junk call. Nope. It isn't, but anyway, let's see. Non-starter on the team, if you're not counting obviously Edwards, it could be any of those linemen. Like if Drake Nugent wins the job as I expect, it could be Raheem Anderson. Not just because of like the potential to back him up, but for the competition to push each other forward. I also think that. Let me think here. In guys that will play, Rayshawn Benny, I don't think is getting talked up enough. I think that I don't know if he's necessarily the most important. Like again, like a lot of these guys, it's hard to tell. Like who, but I mean, I think that Rayshawn Benny has that opportunity to be like take that big step forward and be like kind of that Chris Jenkins type player. Kenneth Grant, obviously, as well, as far as being a run stopper. Like he could come in and just be like this dominant force that just clogs up lanes and takes on double teams and things of that nature. And then whoever your next defensive end is as well, depending on, again, we don't necessarily know who the starters are going to be. I mean, we can say it's going to be Jalen Harrell, Braden McGregor, but it could be Josiah Stewart. It could be someone else, right? So Derek Moore, certainly. So whoever your backups are kind of on the defensive line, I would also put in that category. But I don't have the name of one guy. I don't think that I think that's the thing, is they've got so much talent across the board. It's hard to designate that there's just one guy. Finishing us out in segment 1, Spencer Whitmore. And Spencer Whitmore with 7 home games this year and 6 the following year compared to 8. Are we seeing this as a new norm because of large TV deals? No, I just think this is kind of how it shook out. Thanks to actually they've got more than 6 next year. 7 home games this year, 6. You're saying 6? Let me look at the schedule. I don't believe that. I don't know that I can actually see the schedule, because they had 5 listed in the Big Ten, right? Okay, it's not going to let me see it here per se. Let's see, future Michigan football schedules. I believe they still have 8 next year, right? Because the home games are Fresno State, Texas, Arkansas State, and then they still have 5 home games in outside of that. UCLA, Michigan State, Minnesota. And I'm just trying to go off of memory here. But they've got the home games, right? So, and then in 2025 they've got still 5 home games, and then they're down to 7. So they have more than 6, right? So I don't know how to answer that otherwise. All right, so let's continue on. We've got plenty more questions coming up here momentarily. Before we get into that, if you want to get into the comfort kingdom, then I have got just the thing for you. Birddogs is revolutionizing comfort when it comes to your pants and shorts. Whether you're looking for something classy for the gym, for going out to the lake this summer, or anything in between, Birddogs has got you covered. You'll look better and you'll feel better wearing Birddogs, and they allow you the versatility of going from the beach or to the golf course, right to dinner or to your next meeting. Take my guy, Bert Kreischer. You know him as The Machine, or you know him as Bert Kreischer, one of the two. He wakes up at his lake house, he goes for a swim, smokes a cigar, grills, chills with his family, and he does it all wearing his summer shorts. One pair. That's how versatile they are. So go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege, and they'll throw in a free tumbler, Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. All right, let's continue on with our Victor's Valiant going to Jim at Jim in the North. How much do you think Donovan Edwards' injury held him back last season? And what do you predict for him this season in terms of productivity? Again, it all depends on what Michigan's willingness is to do. It's hard to really predict what this offense is going to be, especially like Jim Harbaugh said, we want to get him like 8 to 10 touches a game. Blake Corum, 8 to 10 touches a game, 6 touches for the receivers each. I think his injury held him back a lot, especially late in the season when he didn't have the use of a full hand or arm even. And then he's got a torn patella tendon. That's going to hold you back quite a bit. I'm impressed. I understand he's young. He can play through some things that I can't. I mean, I've had where like my knee's swollen a little bit or something like that, or it's a little weak, and I struggle to walk. He's out there busting out long runs, but I do think that we've yet to see anywhere close to what he is capable of. As far as numbers, I mean, he almost had 1,000 yards last year just rushing. I could see him having like 1,200 yards rushing and 300 yards receiving, something like that. Give him 1,500 all-purpose yards and just figure out how to slice and dice it. Mark Z at Mark Zimke, rank these in order from least to most likely. Benjamin Hall, running back 3. Peyton O'Leary, wide receiver 3. Davis Warren, QB 2. Alex Orji, QB 2. I'm going to go from least to most. So I'm going to go Alex Orji, QB 2. Davis Warren, QB 2. Benjamin Hall, RB 3. And Peyton O'Leary, wide receiver 3. I think Peyton O'Leary might end up being your wide receiver 3. So I think that's most likely. I think there's a strong possibility Benjamin Hall will be in the rotation of RB3. But I think Khalil Mullings and CJ Stokes might end up being ahead of him, but I think it's going to be situational. Just fully depending on. Alex Orji, I think, is going to be a change of pace quarterback to some degree, but I don't think that he's going to be like the legitimate QB2. And Davis Warren, I think, is a coin flip there, but I'm going to give it to Jack Tuttle. I think Davis Warren looked more impressive in the spring game, but Jack Tuttle, older, he's got some moxie. They brought him in for a reason. I wouldn't be surprised. Clark at Blue for Life 8. If you could bring back either one coach or one player from the past, who would you go with? I'm assuming you mean assistant coach rather than just head coach, because I'd be pretty happy with Jim Harbaugh. As far as adding another, keeping Sharon Moore but bringing on as like a co-offensive coordinator, I'd bring back. We'll stay Harbaugh era. We'll go Jed Fish. He might not be the best option. I mean, Jim Herman defensively might be that guy, but maybe not. Or if you could get Don Brown 2016-17, that wouldn't be bad. But the problem is Don Brown 2023, the Big Ten all kind of knows exactly where he's coming from, knows what he's doing. As far as players from the past, especially considering what Michigan needs at the moment, and I know they got Josh Wallace and whatever. I'm again sticking with the Jim Harbaugh era. I mean, if you weren't sticking with the Jim Harbaugh era, it would be Charles Woodson. If you're gonna go with the Jim Harbaugh era, I would go with Jordan Lewis. So I guess that would just all depend on that. But yeah, but either one coach or one player, if I had to go with one or the other, and I could just go with whatever, I'd go Charles Woodson. That would be my choice. Adam Kasel at Adam_Kasel. Do you know if Jaden Davis will enroll early? I believe so. I saw a picture of him with JJ and they look to be the same height. JJ is listed at 6'3", Jaden at 5'11". Do you know if they're the same height, and is JJ a legit 6'3"? I think that Jaden's more 6 foot, like legit 6 foot. Maybe 6'1". He a little bit, like just a smidge shorter than me. I feel when he walked by me. JJ is definitely 6'3". He's a little bit taller than I am. I'm about 6'1". Back before the getting older and kind of what do you call it, slouching. I was like 6'2"-ish. I was listed as 6'3" at one point on my driver's license. I'm not 6'3", but I was 6'2" at one point. Now last time I measured myself, I was more like 6'1"-ish. Like, just all depends on my posture. So that's how I judge, just standing next to these guys. Ike Hamlin at Hamstand 87. Do you think Iowa's standard is 25 offensive points or just points a game in general? I see a loophole. Oh, man. I have no idea what Iowa's going to be. Real question, if Sharon Moore leaves, do you have a few folks you'd look at first? Well, you'd look at Kirk Campbell if he does a good job, and supposedly he has a real good mastery of the offense and input and all of that stuff. So I would look at him, and I guess Mike Hart as well at first if they're both still around. Outside of that, I don't know, but I don't know. It's hard to really gauge, especially because no one would have said Sharon Moore offensive coordinator at one point. And I don't think that Jim Harbaugh is necessarily going to repeat the Josh Gaddis of it all. I think you just try to do as much to keep the same system. And that's hard to do because not a lot of schools in college football are doing what Michigan's doing. So I would probably imagine the call will come from inside the house. That would be my thing. James Kovalevsky at Coach_Kovo. What percentage chance do you put at Notre Dame joining the Big Ten within the next 10 years? I know they're being stodgy. I'm going to go with 60%. I might even go higher than that. To me, it just feels like they're going to expand to 20 teams. The Big Ten will. Notre Dame, I don't think it's going to want to tie its everything to the ACC. You've got the NBC Peacock deal now with the Big Ten, and I know they've long enjoyed we've got that deal on our own. We're the ones on NBC. Guess what? That's gone now. and it would just be a nice little shift and slide over. And then on top of it, it makes sense geographically. It makes sense just traditionally. Like Notre Dame is a Big Ten team. And I think it will end up helping just in general. But I mean, I don't know. The scheduling, they might not like it. But I think with USC there as well now in the Big Ten, I think that helps. Having your rival that you want to have that year-end game with, being in the conference that you should be in, I think that would make sense. Dan Walton at 3D Walton. Thoughts on the Empower Initiative? I mean, I did a whole segment on it a couple days ago, so I won't go too deep into it. I think it's great, right? Like, I mean, it's forward thinking. It's what you would expect from Jim Harbaugh, and like I said, the teach a man to fish versus giving a man a fish. Favorite Star Wars villain? I think it's. I thought about this. I saw that when I was getting prepped for this show. I think it's Asajj Ventress. I have an Asajj Ventress lightsaber. So when we move into the other space, which could be 6 months, could be a year, behind the house in the outbuilding, I'll probably mount some lightsabers. I had the Emperor Palpatine lightsaber in the old set, but Asajj Ventress I think is my favorite. But I'm trying to think. It would be definitely someone from Clone Wars. I feel would be my favorite. If anyone didn't know already, as far as heroes, is Ahsoka Tano. So weirdly, not my favorite era of Star Wars, and yet the two that I picked as my favorites are from that era. Kylo Ren, actually. I know that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. I like Kylo Ren. I have his lightsaber as well, and I think he's just cool. Perry Mitchell at Perry Mitchell 08. Which would you rather see in 2024? Michigan USC with JJ and Caleb Williams, or Michigan USC with both their next prospect at QB after those two go in the first round of the 24 draft? Easily the first one. Easily. I would rather see the two, the Heisman winner and, depending on what JJ does. I mean, it could be a Heisman winner as well. Michigan's probably not going to give him that opportunity. But I would rather see the two really good quarterbacks dueling it out rather than two young guys that we don't really know what they're capable of doing. I'd rather see that. Anton Sesmita Mangala asks Sesmita Mangala, do you foresee college football getting more flexibility with scheduling so games aren't locked in several years ahead of time? Probably not, because there's a lot of logistical stuff that has to kind of take place, right? I mean, yeah, we've learned in the COVID year it can change and everything, but no. And I hope not, because I mean, number one, we're going to have the playoff expanding, so we're going to get some of those matchups anyway. But I was looking earlier today at Alabama's future schedule. It is insane. They have home and homes with so many, it starts this year with a home and home with USF, which is kind of bizarre. But they go to Wisconsin, they go to Virginia Tech, they go to Oklahoma State, and their schedule goes out with these home and homes all the way into, they go to Minnesota. Goes all the way into 2036. I think it's cool. I want to see all of those. I think that's awesome. Also, do you think Michigan will ever schedule 2 Power 5 non-conference games in a year? They've done that. It doesn't, I mean, granted, 2015, I mean, BYU isn't an actual Power 5, but I mean, they're kind of a Power 5 and they played Utah. They've done that. It's just a matter of sometimes it's not it's like a, wait, 2016, did they? No, they didn't. Colorado was the only one. But yeah, no. I think that, I mean, clearly not in the foreseeable per se, but it would be nice if they went back to it. I mean, they've done it. It's been a while. I would prefer it. Trying to think of 2006. They opened with Vanderbilt, and I can't remember who they played after that. Probably no one, so maybe I'm wrong. Finishing us out in segment 1, I'm not the one at William Cawthorn 9. If the NFLU offered you a job, would you love us? You mean Michigan? I mean, of course, who's got it better than us, as they say. Do you feel better about the basketball team now that they've announced the transfers? I mean, I feel the same. I think that there's a lot that looks good. I'm still curious if they're going to, I think it's fine. I know they're still going for some guards. I think that you've got a good mix of guys who've played and guys who need to play more, right? And still Doug McDaniel, Jalen Llewellyn. You've got to remember you've got those guys. It sucks not having Caleb Love, but it is what it is. But I still feel like it's a talented roster that can do some things. It's just they have to figure out how to finish games. Sometimes teams can't do that. So, all right, we've got a couple more coming up. We're going to power through those so we don't go overtime here in just a moment. All right, rare night episode. I wanted to make sure we got it in. Just today, you ever have one of those days you just can't wake up? Like I had a Rain, which is 300 milligrams of caffeine, and then I went and got a coffee afterwards. Normally, I would expect my heart to explode, but that was the only way I could stay up. Anyway, Rich Nelson at Rich Nelson 1, question for the mailbag. With 19 commits already in 2029 recruiting, several additional crystal balls and a handful of other targets remaining, what do you think the upper bound is for the size of the 2024 recruiting class? Has NIL removed the relevance of scholarship limits? I know I just already answered that. So, yeah, I think that it could go up to 30. I mean, I could go to 32 if they can figure that out. But we'll see. Original Farm Boy 1 at Original Farm Bow 1. How many spots are there for offensive tackle? Will there be movement in this position in the near future? I think that they could take 2 more. I know a lot say 1 more, but if Bennett Warren, if he ends up committing, and then Brandon Baker is sitting there being like, I want to come to Michigan, they're not going to say no. So I think 1 or 2 more, depending on the ones, right? I don't think they're going to take like Bennett Warren and Max Anderson per se, but I think they'll take 2 of the right guy. PJ at Go Blue 300, more of a comment with the goals that they have this year. They will either need to be 12-0 or 11-1 and beat Ohio. There's no other path I see. 11-1 and lost to Ohio is probably not getting them in the playoff. Not sure they will get the benefit of the doubt like Ohio did. I mean, I agree, and that's because the non-conference. Ohio State, if it's 11-1, but the loss is only to Michigan. They have Notre Dame on the resume and Wisconsin. And yeah, they've got more of a chance. Michigan doesn't have a lot of top tier teams on it. So that's a big reason why. Michael Nickel at Nickelman 56, Devin Baxter, Darian Mayo, Jacob Smith, Elias Rudolph, and Brian Robinson, all 4-star edge rushers that have a crystal ball in favor of Michigan. Which one do you believe will be left out? Kind of feels like Brian Robinson's going to Kentucky. I don't know Devin Baxter's story per se. And Darian Mayo, I feel like, is going to go to Ohio State. So the only ones that I feel like are definitely going to end up at Michigan are Jacob Smith and Elias Rudolph, is what it feels like at the moment. So no, I don't think Michigan gets all 5 of them. Ben Ricketts at Ricketts Ben 92, which transfer will have the biggest impact on each side of the ball. Drake Nugent would probably be your top guy, although I think AJ Barner will have a nice flashy outlook, and then Ernest Hausman at linebacker, because I think he's going to plug right in. Like Josiah Stewart might again have some flash to him, but you're going to see Ernest Hausman as like a guy who's on the field constantly. I think more than Josiah Stewart personally. That's why. Brendan at Brendan _good 23. What is the biggest weakness you think on this football team? Wide receiver. Now that they got corner kind of figured out, just doesn't seem like they have a game-breaking wide receiver. I mean, I think they do in Roman Wilson, but they don't have one that's been consistent. That would be the only place that now that they got Josh Wallace with the cornerbacks, that's the only place where it's like, I want to see more explosiveness at receiver, but they don't necessarily always need it. Like Amara Darbo and J.U. Chesson did just fine, right? So that would be the biggest weakness, though, at the moment for me. Finishing us out, Paul H. Lauren at Paul H. Lauren. What do these guys major in? It varies wildly. Some, of course, are general studies. You get some engineering guys. You get a lot of social work guys, sociology. I don't know them all by heart, or, I can't even put one guy to what they're studying at the moment, but is what it is. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Friday. That's the plan, at least. Thanks for watching or listening. Peace.